Hello and welcome to episode 54 of PauseCast. It is Thursday, the 7th of September, 2017. I am Jessica Alouette, and I use she, her pronouns.
And I'm Mark Hanna, I use he, him. Welcome.
Hey, Mark.
Hey.
So, video games, and by that I mean Destiny 2 happened this week.
More importantly, it's just 1 week after XCOM 2's War of the Chosen DLC got released.
And so it's been just like a good period for just video games, I guess. Destiny 2 launched yesterday. It's very good. We're getting right into this. This is PauseCast. It's a show about video games. And we're here. We've played a bunch of video games.
Well, I think we each played a lot of one video game each, right?
Well, I only had yesterday to play Destiny 2.
Okay, that's fair. But did you play a lot of it yesterday?
I did play a lot of it yesterday.
Good on you. Now, it's only come out on consoles, right? PC is still, a month away or something?
End of October.
Oh, it's a couple months away. Okay.
So, as if I have to ask, but what have you been playing this week?
A lot of XCOM 2. Every night, all evening, pretty much. It's been my thing for the last week. I think, if I remember right, what I was on before it came out in terms of hours played on Steam, I think I played 40 hours of it over the last week, so, a full-time job's worth. And it's very good. Basically, I've really enjoyed it.
Good.
And I'm guessing you've been playing less than 40 hours, since it hasn't been out for 40 hours yet, but a bunch of Destiny 2. I don't know what else, though.
I have played a bunch of Destiny 2. I'll get to that in a little bit. I've also been playing a bit of Dying Light.
Oh, yeah?
I've unfortunately been doing some of the story and side quest stuff on my own. Sorry, Mark.
That's alright. I've played through it twice before, so...
Yeah. I found a few, neat things in that game. I sought out one of them, which was the secret Mario level.
Yeah, I was just about to ask about that, actually. And you said neat things. I've never actually been to it.
Yeah, I went and I tried to find it on my own for a little bit. Then I looked up a map and I ran to it. It's a neat little level. You can't use your weapons or anything like that in the Mario level. And it just offers it's just like a goofy thing. And I also found one of the clickers from The Last of Us.
Oh yeah, I remember being told about that, but where was that at?
So, in the town hall in Sector 0, if you go up to the second floor, at one point the elevator will just open, and one of the clickers will come out.
And it's just like a regular zombie, but with a different skin?
Yeah, it's just like a regular zombie, but with a different head.
Okay. Wait a minute. I think I've seen that.
Yeah.
Now I didn't know what it was. I remember when I was playing through Dying Light, I'm just opening up my screenshots now, with friends the first time, at one point we saw a weird looking zombie and I thought it was a bug, so I took a screenshot.
Oh, do you still have that kicking around somewhere?
I've just opened it up. Is that it?
That is in fact the clicker from The Last of Us.
So I have found that. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a bug. I was like, that's a weird bug. Its head's open.
Yep, no, that was what I thought initially too, and I was just like, I realized posthumously, that was the clicker.
Right.
It was just it was just there. Anyway, that was one of the neat things I ended up finding in Dying Light, and I hear there's a bunch more stuff like that just kind of kicking around.
Yeah, I definitely remember hearing about the Mario one and being a bit surprised because I didn't think they'd have anything quite that out there in the game.
And obviously we have Excalibur and stuff like that we found in the world.
Yeah, I didn't know about that either till we found it.
Yeah. Ash showed you that for the first time?
Well,
okay.
I swam out because you two were already there. I was like, what are you doing? I swam out to find you, and she just pulled the sword out and had to spend ages doing it, and we both just got to pick it up.
Yep. That was kind of how that all worked out.
I didn't even know it was in the game until that point.
Video games are so goofy. A little bit. Also up on my list was a little bit of XCOM 2, which was mostly just me realizing, oh, I've screwed my save file irreparably. Oh.
Well, wait, you were playing that without any of the DLC, right? Like you own some, but you disabled it to play the base game on its own.
Yep, that's accurate.
How did you manage to screw up your save?
I managed to screw it up in that all my soldiers got killed.
Every one of them?
Well, basically every one of them, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then a terror attack happened.
Oh, and the retaliation missions, yeah.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, that save file has gone directly into the dumpster. I may have also realized that, I was playing at too high a difficulty for that. Also, whoops.
What difficulty were you playing at?
I was playing at Veteran.
That's the one above normal, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean to do that on my next playthrough because I've managed to get over the hill where it's not feeling challenging anymore now that I've got most of the top tier gear.
Right, yeah.
So even though the top tier monsters are there as well, you start to outpace them, especially once you've beat some of the bosses and got their extra loot. Which is, I think, one of the things that you were worried about with Alien Hunters, right? Was the idea that, yes, there's some extra challenge, but once you've defeated it, you're just stronger than before and the challenge is removed?
It's mostly just I didn't want to fight the, Alien Hunters bosses.
Okay.
That was, most of the reason why I didn't opt into that DLC. And then Shen's last gift was the one I didn't want to be overpowered for my first playthrough.
Okay.
And so I dropped that one.
That's interesting, because what I've found is that it's the Alien Hunters one that will make you overpowered, and Shen's last gift is just more options, but I don't know if I'd say it's as overpowering. It does make you more powerful because you've got more options, and the sparks are pretty strong.
Sure, yeah.
But what I've found getting later into War of the Chosen is that it's got that same issue, I suppose, that the Alien Hunters DLC did. So they both do similar things. They both add 3 boss enemies to the game that can show up multiple times, and after you beat them, you can research new, very powerful weapons.
Sure, yeah.
And so the challenge is good. That's fun. But the issue I've found is once they're gone, and you are way stronger than you were before because you got all this better gear. And then they haven't added any extra challenges that stick around to deal with that. Because in the base game, in the end game, you can feel on par or stronger than the aliens once you've got the top tier gear. And they've added more strength on top of that for you, but not for the aliens, because all of the extra strong stuff there, just once you deal with those bosses, you can stop them coming back ever.
Right.
So there are new enemy types in War of the Chosen. It's possible that there are some end-game enemy types that I haven't seen yet. I know there's still one enemy type in the base game that I haven't yet run across, but there's only one. I'm getting pretty close to it. And that only hasn't shown it because they haven't progressed the story far enough.
Right. Yeah.
The other new enemies I've seen came around earlier in the game, and they're really interesting. That they add new tactics for the enemies, which is good, and I'm interested to see how they play it out when I try a veteran playthrough next. Because what I'm thinking of doing is, now that they've got those customizable difficulty things I mentioned last episode, I want to slow down the strategic difficulty stuff, so the overview stuff, the doomsday counter, essentially. I want to slow that down, and then increase the tactics difficulty so that I can make the bit I enjoy more challenging without making the bit that frustrates me more challenging. That's what I'm looking forward to, because I've found now, I want to handicap myself, because the challenge is just, don't let them get lucky and hit me once kind of thing, because I've got 6 overpowered people with super weapons. Mm-hmm. Whereas I want to say there was a really fun mission that I did on Tuesday night, and the reason it was so fun is because it was one of the guerrilla missions that you get to pick from several options, and they've added something in War of the Chosen called sit reps, which are essentially their modifiers to mission. It might be the Lost will show up, or there's a lot of psionic enemies here, or something. This one was called low profile, which was you can't send in any soldiers that are higher rank than sergeant, which I think is the 3rd rank out of 10 or something.
Okay.
So I had to send in all my really low rank soldiers that I've used once, if ever, before. And because of that, so they had good gear, which gave them options, but they had very few skills. And it was really challenging, like a good challenge. It felt like a puzzle, where if you do everything just right, you can get through it. But if you mess something up, things are going to go very bad. Whereas the other missions, it's like, well, I could have done it any of a dozen ways and not really run into trouble because I've got super soldiers.
Yeah.
I actually found, so there's a dev tool for showing replays of your missions. It's only available if you run the game in debug mode, and it is not polished at all. Half the time or more, you'll get to a certain point where it'll just stop being able to replay and it'll hang. But this mission, I could do the full replay for, so I was excited. I showed my flatmate the whole replay, commenting on like it was a bloody sports match or something. It was a lot of fun to go back through. I wish that more of the really exciting missions I'd done had working replays, but I tried them and they just get to a certain point and then are like, nah, you can't watch anymore.
Right, okay. It sounds like there's been, a massive overhaul to most of the XCOM systems through War of the Chosen, and you've been finding that a really good time with this past week?
Yeah, so adding the fatigue thing, so soldiers get tired, which makes them more likely to panic, and eventually if you use them too much, they'll get shaken and can't go out into combat, even if they haven't got hurt, has forced me to mix up my soldiers a bunch more. Having the soldier bonds is really interesting because it makes you start thinking of soldiers in pairs, and I've found that it gives them a lot more personality. I tend to customize them in that context as well, so I think about how they play together and customize it to make them look visually similar and stuff like that.
Right.
That's worked really well, I think, just for adding extra character to them. All the extra stuff about being able to teach them extra skills than they would normally get has been really nice again for just having them more unique and more individual, I guess.
Right, okay.
And you can also focus a whole bunch of skills into your best people and be like, this person is amazing. As well as on the COVID ops you can send them on, you can give them a bunch of passive bonuses. So you can say, I want this person to get really good aim. So you'll send them on a bunch of COVID ops that give plus aim. And now my highest ranked sharpshooter, it's rare that he has less than 100% chance to hit, which is really useful.
Very nice. I am going to shift gears into my sequel of choice.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to be... It's going to be Destiny 2. So that launched yesterday at midnight in New Zealand. I did not have my copy at midnight, I assure you. We ordered physical discs, and they got here fairly early in the morning. And then I got to play them in the evening. And oh my goodness, that game is very good. And it also opens in a really, really cool way that I think a lot of MMOs should maybe take note of.
Yeah.
So what it does at the beginning, right at the beginning, it will show you a list of your it'll show you a big sketch and a little summary of the things you did in Destiny 1 that were major story things.
Are these story points that happen for everyone, or is this an imported save kind of deal?
These are story points that happen for everyone.
Okay.
But the unique touch there is it shows you who you did that mission with. So if you were doing those events with certain people, with anybody at the time, then you got a little thing in your screen that shows you, oh yeah, you did this with these friends. And so I went through the first few, and I didn't do a lot of the like really really special stuff in Destiny 1. But there was one that I did, which was the Rise of Iron, which was one of the biggest expansion ones, and I finished the main story for Rise of Iron, and I finished that for the first time with my girlfriend, and that was like our first chunk of Destiny that we had played together. Was just doing a bunch of the Rise of Iron stuff and trying to get me to a much higher level than I was at the time, and it made me tear up just a little bit. Almost made me cry to see just like, oh, the game remembered that like I did this with Ash, and I remember doing that with her, and I remember having a really good time doing that thing with her.
It's really nice.
Yeah, I'll post a link to an article which kind of explains how all of this stuff works.
Okay.
But yeah, it shows you like cool sketches with like the people that you did this major thing with. For like all the raids, they added these little memories. And yeah, it was really great to revisit that before I jumped right into Destiny 2 with the button prompt it gave me, which said "Begin a new adventure." And so I've begun my new adventure, and as it turns out, it's very good. A lot of Destiny 2 feels very familiar. It feels very much like its predecessor. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because it works really, really well. But there's definitely a few things that I miss from Destiny 1. I've definitely noticed the absence of a system called bounties, which, you know, those are in kind of every game. They're little, like, kill 50 enemies and you get an XP bonus kind of situations.
Right.
I kind of miss those. They were a cool thing. There's a few little UI things that I kind of miss. But there's enough improvement on basically everything in that story. And in the game itself, like, all the characters in Destiny 1 ultimately felt kind of disposable. Because they weren't particularly well animated, and they opened up in this weird kind of disconnected void. And so myself and a lot of players, I think, skipped over a lot of what they were like saying when you finished quests and stuff like that.
Right.
And now I'm like completely compelled to just like watch them because they have like in-world backdrops and they're animated in this like new way, and it makes these characters actually feel very compelling. There's stuff like that. There is a handful of tweaks to the weapon system that I'm kind of into.
I heard that they've sort of reorganized that, right? I was talking to Patrick, my brother, who plays a lot of Destiny, about it on the weekends, and it's, you used to have certain categories of weapons, and now you've got different categories of weapons, so the combinations you have is different.
Yeah, so what happened there was, it used to be you just had like primary, secondary, and heavy, and those were your weapon categories. That's pretty straightforward. They've elected in Destiny 2 to make it so that you have a kinetic weapon, which is like a traditional kind of bullet firing weapon, an energy weapon, which uses one of the like forms of light that you can get in the game, which is solar, arc, and void.
Which is also known as fire, lightning, and cold in fantasy, right?
Basically, yeah. But you can have a gun that has that kind of energy, and then you have a... I forget exactly what the third category is actually called.
Special, I think it was it?
It might just be special, yeah. And that's for things like shotguns, very heavy machine guns... Stuff like that all kind of falls into that category usually, and then everything that used to span both primary and secondary, except for shotguns, which are now in that special category. Most other weapon types that spanned primary and secondary are now just divided between energy and kinetic, making it possible to have like oh yeah, if you wanted to have two of this particular type of gun because you really like them, you totally could. And they'll have different characteristics between them and stuff.
How have you found that working for you?
I've liked it for the most part. I haven't gotten to the point where my item drops really matter. I'm just kind of scrambling for the most powerful thing.
Yeah.
Once I reach level 20, I'll start to, hit that point where, oh yeah, now I'm looking for the stuff that feels best and not necessarily all of the kind of highest level stuff. But for now, yeah, I'm scrambling for power. Yeah, I've really enjoyed where this has gone so far, especially the fact that I actually give a shit about the story this time.
Yeah, that can make such a difference in your investment in the game, right?
Yeah, no, it totally can. And Destiny 1 story was like double weird because I've talked about before the grimoire system, which was like, oh yeah, you have to go to the Bungie website and you can look at all the lore cards there. Like,
yeah,
cool,
but they're not in the game, right?
Cool, yeah, I'm never gonna do that. And they weren't in the game. And it's the same situation with like Overwatch. Overwatch's lore is not in the game. It's all in the comics and the videos and stuff like that. And it's like, cool, but just put that in the game. Or put like a link to it in the game so that like I can click on that and it'll bring me to the YouTube page that has all of these things.
Or like the codex in Mass Effect, right?
Yeah, like the codex in Mass Effect. Like that would be the ideal. The lore is in the game now, at least, which is nice.
So how have they done that?
A lot more of it is in kind of the more rare item descriptions.
Okay.
Which was where, like, when you got those ultra rare items in Destiny 1 or completed certain events, you would get one of those grimoire cards, and you couldn't read it. You just had to go to Bungie.net and trust us, the lore is there. It's just not in the game.
The fact that it was associated with items in the game, that just seems doubly weird.
Yeah, it extremely was doubly weird. And yeah, now they seem to have tossed a lot of that off. They seem to have like shaken a lot of the cruft off of Destiny as a thing. They've added what's called adventures, which were like little mini missions, which are kind of neat. Like they'll bring you through a series of objectives and stuff, but you can just like kind of find them and start them while you're out in the world.
Does that feel like it's a replacement for bounties or something?
Maybe it is. Maybe that is the intended replacement, but you can't repeat them necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't like, they're multi-stage things. Like your average adventure, I think, takes you about 10 to 15 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
And it will bring you through a good chunk of the world in some cases. There's little mini dungeons that you can do, which are like 5 minutes at a time, which are called Lost Sectors. And they end with a small boss fight and a big loot chest that you can get stuff out of, which is kind of cool. I'm gushing a lot about Destiny 2. I played about 5 or 6 hours of it yesterday.
Are you itching to get back into it tonight?
I'm not just itching to get back into it. It's going to be broadcast.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'll be doing that. I'll be doing that as the after show replacement this week. So instead of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, I'll be playing some Destiny 2 and going through some of the level 10 story missions. And
you're halfway towards the maximum level already.
Yeah, I'm halfway there, but like Ash hit level 20 early this morning because she played a bunch last night, way after I went to bed.
Yeah. Okay, so it can be done in like a solid day of play can be done.
Oh yeah, like you could make it to level 20. You won't finish the story though.
Oh, interesting. I thought they might keep the max level on pace with the story so that you'd typically reach them both at the same time.
So how certain things worked in Destiny 1 was at a certain point levels stopped being a requirement, and this was the case for a lot of its last expansion, which was called Rise of Iron. And for most of Rise of Iron, the level was just like it was assumed that you were level 40, and that was when you could start that content. And so instead, it looks for the average level of your gear.
Mm-hmm.
And so it had to be above a certain gear level before you could actually go through and start playing that mission. So I think to start some of the Rise of Iron content, you had to have power level 340. So you would be level 40, and you'd have to be level 40 for a while and do some of the high-level events and player versus player stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that would then give you better gear, which would then increase your score. It used to be a lot more confusing, but yeah, it was just an average between all of your kind of gear pieces. I think the level cap for that in Destiny 2 right now is 300.
And you were saying, what, 340?
Yeah, 340 was like the end of Rise of Iron. You had stuff that was up to 410.
Okay. And as you level up in Destiny, that's just increasing your damage and stuff. Is it unlocking new skills as well? I've never played it, so...
Yeah, the actual levels and stuff do. So, like, as I gain experience right now, every time I level up, I gain an upgrade point, and I can use that on a different skill and different grenade, a different jump type, and a few of the, like, smaller bonuses, like doing this melee ability will then also give you this small bonus.
Is it a matter of once you're max level, you've like maxed out the skill tree?
No, because there's a few skill trees, and you will probably, in Destiny 2 at least, you'll finish your skill tree by about the time you're level 15 or so, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you'll finish that, like, pretty early and be able to work on your other, like, subclasses if you wanted to. I'm playing the Titan, so I've stuck by the Sentinel subclass so far, which it's been good fun.
Nice.
I have like a Captain America-esque shield that I can throw at things.
I think that's the class that my brother plays as well, actually. I think I remember being told about the Captain America shield the other night.
Yeah, it's very fun. Also, they have the ability to just kind of like create cover, like full height cover, which is super useful when you're playing some of the missions solo.
I'll bet, yeah.
You can't shoot through it or anything, but you can kind of just like create a wall, and anything that tries to walk through it will be damaged. It's super useful in. I used it in some of the player versus player, and that stuff was really interesting as well, because I could actually like create a wall and kind of run away and recover, and if someone tried to walk through it, they would take a little bit of damage.
Did you win the PvP when you were playing it?
Oh yeah, I played about 5 matches last night, and I won 4 and lost 1.
Nice, well done. That's a pretty good record.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Yeah, we lost 1 because we were still getting in our groove, and
is it 2v2?
No, it's 4 versus 4. But when 2 people make up half a team. Me and Ash we were struggling a little bit for a while there, and then we stepped it up in the next game pretty promptly.
Nice.
Yeah. It was XCOM 2, so XCOM 2, Dying Light, Destiny 2. Destiny 2 is very good. Yeah. It's been a good week for games for me, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely been a good week for games for me as well with this one. Because, I mean, like I've mentioned it before, how I'll once I find a game I really like, I latch onto it. And that's happened here. Excuse me. And, it's happened a bit early this year, since it's not, October or November that I normally really want to play XCOM 2.
Yeah, no.
But it's been really good. I had one... the posters are such a fantastic tool for memorializing your best missions. Like the one that I mentioned where all of the new people had. So I probably spent, I think I spent an hour and a half in that mission being really careful about all of my choices. But I think I spent about 45 minutes ahead of that because it was all new soldiers and I had to customize them first, obviously.
Right, of course, yeah.
XCOM 2 is as much about playing with dolls as it is about fighting aliens, let me tell you. I only wish there were more armor customization options in the late game. But no, so that was really good, and I've got a poster to commemorate it as well. I've been having a lot of fun with the posters at the end, actually. I had one really exciting mission where I took my 6 best people in to an abandoned city where I had to find a VIP and extract them, and also there were a couple of other soldiers hiding in the city. And I knew it was full of Lost, and I knew it was full of aliens. So the first thing I did was get everyone up onto the top story I could get into, up a fire escape, sneak quietly through all these apartments to get to the VIP, and then used the apartment they were hiding in as like a safe house kind of thing, sneaking outside to look at the aliens who it turns out were like right down beneath it. And then once you activate the objective, you get revealed, I think is what it was.
Right.
And this was the first time in this game that I saw a sectopod, which is one of the toughest enemies in the game. It's this autonomous robot that is huge, has some very powerful attacks. And the first thing it did was really scary because it just went underneath, in the building, underneath me where I couldn't see it anymore. So I very quickly moved everyone out of that room, and the next turn the floor blew up. It was really exciting. So we were shooting out of the apartment, we were shooting through the floor, the hole in the floor of the apartment to kill all the stuff. It was a really close call. And at the end of it, I took a poster of everyone standing, I think it was on a overhead train line next to the apartment, all like, yes, we survived, kind of thing. It's so good. It makes such good stories, this game.
The fact that we have games that can make stories like this so easily is so impressive to me. Like, when I talk about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and I do a lot, it's all these like weird things that we've run into and these cool like bad situations that we shouldn't have survived but totally did, and all this sort of cool stuff. And with XCOM 2, it's those missions that we barely survive. And in Destiny 2, it's the people you were with, it's the achievements that you like had with each other, rather than like in Destiny 1 at least, the story that it's not so much the story you remember as much as you remember like the people you did that stuff with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, games as a storytelling device are incredible, and games as a like unintentional storytelling device are, well, unintentional is maybe the wrong word. I'm not quite sure how to summarize it. Is
it emergent storytelling that you're thinking of?
Yeah, it is the emergent storytelling, but like part of me thinks that is deliberate, you know? Like,
I think they're definitely trying to add more pieces to XCOM 2 that help with that aspect of it.
Right.
For sure. I've actually found that I'm enjoying the quote story unquote of the non-story missions a lot more than I am the actual XCOM 2 story. Just because instead of becoming the XCOM 2 story, it's becoming the story of the soldiers that I'm controlling.
Yeah, exactly.
And it feels a lot more special. But as well as a story generator, I feel like it's a really good puzzle generator. Because that's how I feel about it a lot of the time. It's, you move forward, oh, okay, these are the enemies that have shown up. What is the best thing to do to protect everyone you've got and take them down, especially if there's a timer or whatever? What's the best order in which to do things and the best options to pick? If you have a chance to miss this shot, what backup do you have to have in place so that you're ready for whatever eventuality? That actually, in particular, the bonds help a lot with that, because the main way you use them is 2 bonded soldiers can, once or twice per mission, depending on how high level the bond is, they've got charges shared between them, can gift an action to their partner. So if one person has run forward and shot, their turn is over, but their partner can, and then, they missed and they're suddenly in danger, their partner can give them an extra move in a crisis to get them back in cover or whatever.
Right.
And that is a really really nice tool to be able to use. It lets you take a little bit more risks as well, I've found, just because of that, because if things go really badly, I can give them an extra move, or even two if they're high level and their partner's way back in safety, and I can use both their moves on giving them this extra stuff.
Right.
So that's quite neat. I know one of the new soldier classes has got an ability to give an extra move, and the Psi soldiers have had it for ages as well, but it's a particularly useful tool to have, I guess, and there's a lot of reasons to keep the pairs together. One of them is, you only have access to these abilities when your partner is nearby, but also if you send them on covert ops, they tend to complete them faster as well. I think once they get to second out of 3 levels, I don't want to say the word bondage here. Once they get their bond to level 2, I think they take a day off every covert action they do. So, if it's a 4-day one, then that's taking a full quarter off it, which is pretty useful.
Right. Hey, Mark, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I got 2 questions for you, actually.
Okay.
The first, do you know if we have anything in the inbox?
I don't, do we?
We don't have anything in the inbox, unfortunately.
Oh, shucks.
If you want to send anything to the inbox, you can do so by emailing us at pausecastshow@gmail.com. My second question for you, Mark. Since we don't have anything in the inbox, I suppose I have to ask you a question. Do you think that the narrative of games, like the fixed narrative, is going to matter much as we go into wherever the hell games are taking us next? Do you think those fixed stories are going to matter as much, or if they're ultimately going to trend towards being, I guess, a bit more disposable?
So we've talked a bunch before about the D&D game I run and how that's collaborative storytelling. Yeah. I think that the sort of emergent stuff that we talk about, I think that's collaborative storytelling between the player and the people who made the game, as opposed to storytelling through the writing of the game telling its own story. I don't think we're going to see narrative-driven stuff dropping away. I think there's always going to be a really important spot for that. And I think of games I've played this year like Horizon Zero Dawn that have had an incredible story that I've really enjoyed. And if it weren't for the strength of that story, I would not have enjoyed the game as much. Some games like XCOM 2, I very much more enjoy it for the the stories that come out of it rather than the story that's being told through it. And I mean, I love a good story. I read so many books. I'm always going to want to go for games that are about telling a story. Things like Final Fantasy X and stuff like that. I really love that stuff. I tend to go for it, I think, when I'm in a bit more of a serious mood. I don't know. That's not to say that I play games like XCOM with a super light heart or anything, but when I'm in the zone, I guess, I tend to go for narrative-driven stuff a lot more. Right. I don't think we're going to see it going away, but I think this, like I've mentioned before, how excited I am to see the stuff that came out of Shadow of Mordor with its Nemesis system influencing a bit the bosses in War of the Chosen, and of course, the Shadow of War coming out in just a couple of weeks. I hope that sort of, hey, we can tell stories in a way that aren't preset and they can still be cool and memorable to the player. I hope that's going to stick around and grow, but I don't think it's going to take the place of pre-written stories, I guess I could call them. Right. Does that answer your question? Did I understand it right?
No, you absolutely did answer my question.
What are your thoughts on it?
Pardon?
I'm interested to know what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that I will always have a place in my heart for really, really narrative focused games, and I'm also with you in I'm playing a game right now that, without that story, I wouldn't enjoy it half as much as I do, and that's Mafia 3. Mm-hmm. If Mafia 3 didn't have any of the narrative value that it does, and it has a lot of narrative value, and it has a lot of really, really cool storytelling devices contained within it, I think without a lot of that narrative value, like, I would be utterly unenthralled by Mafia 3. It's one of those games which has, like, I guess kind of weak systems, and, like, well, it's not necessarily weak systems, but maybe, not the most appealing structure. It's
Right.
not it's relatively repetitive, even if, like, it's super compelling to be in the firefights that it throws out, and it's super compelling to, like, its level of ultra violence is compelling in a weird way and satisfying in a weird way. Everything, like, feels right in Mafia 3.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels brutal, but it's also, like, all of that is backed up by a structure which is ultimately not as quite strong as the gameplay, and so it starts to crumble at the seams. And without the narrative to pull that all together and also contextualize it, like, there's no way in hell that I would enjoy Mafia 3 half as much as I do. And I've talked before on this show about the concept of, like, I guess having a game that you go to like it were a book, specifically referring to stuff like the old Baldur's Gate games. And for a while I played Shadowrun Returns, which kind of fit that. It fit that kind of box for you. The box of, like, oh yeah, this is my, like, fireside, sit down, relax, kick back, and like, lose myself in this, like, cool fantasy or sci-fi world.
Mm-hmm.
And those games have a tremendous value as well. And yeah, I don't foresee anything narrative focused going away anytime soon, especially not character narrative as well. That's another thing to consider.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking specifically stuff like shoot, I had the name of the game and I totally just lost it.
What's it like?
It was an RPG of some nature.
Oh, thanks. That was...
Yeah, no, I completely lost the thread.
Well, you've reminded me of something actually where I feel like the promise of emergent storytelling has fallen flat, which is, remember when No Man's Sky came out?
Oh.
And the whole point was exploring the universe, and stuff gets generated and you get cool stories through your discoveries, and then it didn't really deliver on that promise. I know they've made a lot of improvements more lately, but it goes to show that the sort of emergent storytelling thing, it can fall flat. It can definitely fall flat. Obviously, writing can fall flat as well, and stories can be told in a way that isn't compelling and whatnot. But it's hard as well to get the other side of it right when you're trying to have stories that are generated within the game.
Right.
I've actually...
Yeah, I don't know how much I would agree with your assessment there of No Man's Sky. Just as someone who did particularly enjoy that game at launch.
Oh, sure thing. Yeah. I didn't play very much of it, mainly because I didn't own it. Right. But that, as well as, the impressions from a bunch of other people who played it and didn't like it, it fell flat, perhaps in a way that means not so much it was bad, because obviously, yeah, you enjoy it, and there are a bunch of people who will have enjoyed it. But perhaps it might have been more universally enjoyed if they'd pulled that aspect of it off better,
Yeah, no, it absolutely makes sense. Also, when I'm thinking of character stuff, I'm thinking maybe stuff like The Witcher, and maybe, like, even Fire Emblem and stuff like that, where maybe the narrative itself isn't all that strong, but it's the characters within it that make it worth kind of kicking around for. And maybe Mass Effect Andromeda falls into that same camp, just, like, based on the impressions I've heard about it. Is, like, maybe the overarching narrative isn't all that great, but, like, I sure do like PB.
Yeah, Mass Effect's always been about the characters. I found. I mean, yeah, the stories are about saving the universe and saving the galaxy and whatever, but uh, saving the galaxy wouldn't have mattered if you weren't doing it with Gareth. You know.
Yeah, that's accurate.
I had a flatmate once who who let Gareth die at the end of Mass Effect 2. It was
Absolutely
horrible,
not.
right?
No.
Like I told him, no, that's a game over. You have to try again. But
Yeah, no, that is the only fail state in Mass Effects just ever to exist. No, you can't have you no.
yeah, I've been thinking a bit about Mass Effect 2 lately because my D&D campaign is coming to the end of an arc, and I feel like I'm going to want to take a have a time gap after this before the next thing starts. I've been thinking about how to handle that, and I've kind of been falling on the way that Mass Effect 2 handled it, where spoilers for the original Mass Effect series. At the start of Mass Effect 2, Shepard, the main character, dies and is then brought back to life 2 years later. And hey, all your friends have moved on, and you can see a bit of what's going on with their life. So it's I've been thinking like XCOM 2 had a much less compelling version of that where you were captured and then 20 years passed and then you come back and everything's changed. And it was a nice way, I suppose, of them to say, yes, now, aliens control the world, and that was necessary. But I didn't feel the same sort of sense of discovery of what people had been doing as I did in Mass Effect 2. That is something that was really strong for me in that game. I'm hoping maybe I might be able to try something like that in D&D, but it's just got me thinking what ways different games and I suppose different stories handle that sort of passage of time in between things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
What are some other ways that you can think of that they do that? I know that there are some things that have had like montages after the fact, like the extended cut ending for Mass Effect 3 had that where they showed the aftermath of a lot of different things as kind of a montage.
Real quick before I answer that question,
Yes.
Nath Kai in the chat says, I think it says a lot about the strength of Andromeda's characters that everyone talked constantly about them right up until release, and then quietly returned to talking about Garrus and Rex and Thane again. Is that a fair assessment?
I think so. When I was playing it, it took me a while to warm to each of them, but I think the main reason was I was used to playing with characters who I had history with. It was especially important in Mass Effect 3, where you have those characters. You had Garrus and Liara and Tali in particular, who you'd just gone through 2 other games with, and a bunch of really cool stories. I didn't really feel like I've warmed to the Andromeda characters until I started doing their loyalty missions.
Right.
That helped a lot. There still wasn't as much history there, of course. But history is the history that you build with the side characters in Mass Effect was such a huge part of fondness for them, I think, as well as just who they were. It was a lot of what you went through with them together. So I can see how that would make it easier to reminisce about the old characters. But I don't know if that was the whole of it or not. It was definitely a big part of it for me.
When it comes to like character history, but just like before, again, really quick before I answer your question, or try my best to, The Witcher 3, I don't think would have been as special for me if I had not played The Witcher 2 prior and had that like history with Triss, who then shows up in The Witcher 3, and it's like, oh my god, Triss is back. Yes.
Yeah, I hadn't played it, and I wanted to, but I just didn't feel like I had the time to commit. And when I tried to play The Witcher 1, I wasn't a big fan of just how it handled for me. What I did do is
it's bad. It has bad game feel.
I did watch a very long YouTube video showing all of the cutscenes from both the games, so I could go through and understand the story and some of that history instead of just jumping straight into Witcher 1.
Right.
But obviously that wouldn't give me the same feeling of, hey, it's you! I remember you! I remember doing stuff with you that I would have had if I'd actually played the game and interacted with them instead of watching a movie.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to passage of time, it's really, really weird and tricky to think about kind of like long passages of time, because very few games actually do that. Like Mass Effect 2 definitely did that. I guess like Metal Gear Solid 5 does it a little bit when you go between Ground Zeroes and the Phantom Pain.
She's in a coma for 9 years, was it?
Yeah, exactly. And in that time, all of Outer Heaven has fallen completely, and everybody that you knew from Peace Walker and from Metal Gear Solid 3, because I think those are the only two games prior to that in the timeline, are
That's right.
all they're all just kind of scattered about.
Mm.
And so you have to go find them. That's like one of those things I can think of.
I wish I could have. So that feels similar to Mass Effect 2 for me, where the idea is, hey, I want my old team back, but they're everywhere and they've moved on. I wish I could accomplish something like that in D&D, but if I were to do that, I'd have to say to 3 players, no, you just sit it out for now. So I can't, which is a bit, it's a limitation of that medium. But I like that trope, I suppose, of reconnecting with your scattered team and finding out what they're up to and bringing them all back together. I think that's a really fun story thing to happen. I find it compelling when it happens, I find.
I've also just thought about Tomb Raider and Rise of the Tomb Raider. Because Rise of the Tomb Raider opens up with you and one of your old teammates from the first game scaling a mountain together, and then promptly after that you actually separate and go start doing your own thing as Lara Croft. But you have this moment where you reconnect with this old character again, and then you've both kind of you move on and you do your own thing.
That's a nice way of showing that it wasn't they drifted apart entirely between the two games.
Yeah, no, it was a really great moment to show oh yeah, these characters are still connected, but Lara's here still doing her own thing right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was actually the books I'm reading now have had an interesting way of progressing time. It was another idea I contemplated for progressing time in my D&D world that I'm not really leaning towards at the moment. But at the beginning of each chapter, they have a snippet from the people in charge of sending birds with messages between two cities. And they'll always say, this is the date, this is the contents of the message, and then P.S. here's the conversation between the two bird keepers. And so the beginning of the first book picks up pretty much immediately after the end of the last book of the previous series. But then it quickly goes to, the messages are pretty far apart, and it does, I think, one chapter where it's just a series of the messages and you see time passing, and I think about 5 years pass. And it was a nice way of just getting little snippets of partly what's changing in terms of the politics of the whole thing. This group is getting independence and stuff like that. And just what's happening with the little people, because they're writing about the city I'm living in is recovering and my family's having a hard time kind of stuff. Right. And it was a nice sort of duality there, but also just, the dates at the top of the message were showing how much time is passing. It worked well in that context.
Yeah, I've actually just thought of 2 more examples. The first is Fallout 4, which has the 200-year gap right at the beginning of that game.
Oh yes, that's a good point. And so it's got the 190-year gap and then the 10-year gap, right?
Something like that, yeah. Because there is you wake up very, very briefly, and then you are thrust back into hypersleep. For another 10 years. Or maybe even longer. It might be 20.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I thought I remembered it being 10, but I could absolutely be wrong.
Yeah, well, remember how old spoilers
no, that's the thing. I haven't got that far. I know it happens, but I never actually got that far.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Spoilers is quite old when that happens.
Okay.
And then the second example that I thought of has been promptly lost. I've lost it. Oh, no.
Yeah?
No. Killing Time at Lightspeed. Which was it was an indie title that was released a few years ago. but it was a game which revolved around you like reading emails and social media posts as you went away from Earth at light speed and traveled faster and faster through time, and kind of just watched the world change through this window.
Right, so you're seeing things progress backwards in time if you're traveling faster than light?
I think it's forwards. I'm not
Okay.
100% sure about this.
Okay.
But that reminds me of Interstellar.
Oh, yeah, that did some real interesting time stuff, huh?
Yeah, like that's probably the only thing I can remember from that film. It's not a particularly memorable one for me, but I do remember the videos that he got from the dad got from his daughter as time progressed.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's barely aging and she's growing up.
So what
And I think
what that
that's
was,
a similar
just quick-
kind of system as what happens in Killing Time at Light Speed. Sorry, continue.
Just quick summary of what happens there for spoiling Interstellar. He goes down to a planet near a black hole. Time passes super fast for him. He comes back. Oh, it's been an hour, but like 25 years have passed. Here are all the videos your daughter sent you, and you haven't sent anything back. I think was what happened there.
Yeah,
So
that
they
sounds about
sort of
right.
saved them up, and he had to watch them all at once,
Yeah.
or had them all to watch. Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. It's not something I'd be able to replicate for D&D, having videos of someone. But no, that's a good one. I'd forgotten about that. Maybe thinking of all the interesting, weird time stuff that goes on in. Oh, damn it! Now I'm forgetting the name of stuff. What was that good movie? Far out. Arrival.
Good movie is very vague.
I know. Sorry.
Help me out.
Arrival. Which
Arrival. Okay.
I won't spoil because everyone should watch it without having it being spoiled.
I have not seen that.
You should see it. It's very good. I liked it a lot.
I also just thought of another film that does a time skip thing. Oblivion.
Yeah? Does it?
Right at the end. When, spoilers,
Oh, yes. That's
goes back
right.
to the, cabin. There's a few years of gap
Well, that one's
there.
kind of interesting because they skip perspectives, but, sort of. Right?
Sort of, yeah. The cinematic... Nathkai in the chat says, the cinematic adaptation of Bethesda's Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. I wish. The Oblivion movie's very good. If you've only seen it once and thought it was mediocre, I would maybe watch it a second time.
Yeah, it was interesting when you got me to watch it a second time, and I knew there would be foreshadowing, but I definitely saw more than I had picked up the first time
No,
around.
it opens up a
back on it.
whole other layer of that movie. It is so good. And do you want to read Nathkai's comment from earlier as well about time skips in D&D?
Yeah, so regarding D&D time skips and vignettes, they've said it's a limitation of that system more than that medium. There's a system called Love Letters in Apocalypse World, all about filling in a gap in time and bringing folks back in from circumstances separate altogether. I want to look into that because that sounds interesting.
Okay, I have found a summary of what love letters are. If you've no, I'm gonna skip this. In brief, a love letter is a few paragraphs written specifically for a player or players to bring them up to speed on their situation, usually after a break or a big change of scene. Here is an example. The last session, the players killed an ogre and reclaimed a cache of magic items in the name of the paladin's god. However, the GM was keen to keep the story moving along. It would be more interesting to fast forward to 6 months later and deal with the repercussions of players' newfound power. We decided the best way to get the players up to speed was with a love letter. We didn't decide the specifics, but in general, the letter would tell the players, it's been 6 months since they killed the ogre. They've been on the trail of someone who fled the scene last game. And we're going to do a custom move now to determine whether you found him and where you're living now. And the letter
Moves are the things you roll for in Apocalypse World, right?
I think so.
I think that's
And the
right.
letter we decided the letter would read something like this. Congratulations on the loot, guys. The ogre is dead and you're starting to get known as people who solve problems. Good for you. Since you picked up those magic items, 6 months have passed, and you've probably found yourself a place to live and been hot on the trail of that cultist who fled the scene. Everybody roll, plus whatever you've been using to bring this guy to justice. Strength if you've defeated him in combat. Intellect if you've outsmarted him. And wisdom if you've tracked him for weeks, etc. And we'll take your results as a group average. 10 plus results cancel out 6 minus ones. On a 10 plus, he's dead and everyone knows it. You've gotten a good place in the city, but someone's dropped a familiar corpse on your doorstep. On a 7 to 9, he's dead, but it cost one of you something, and the GM will say what. You're living in a local town well enough, you don't have the scratch to turn down a job if it comes your way, even if it is something boring. Like defending caravans from goblin attacks. On a 6 minus, you either got the guy at a great cost, or he got away. Your choice. You're holed up in some backwater village on the road to the city. You still got the magic items, of course, and the shirts on your back.
Oops.
But precious little else. You need food in your belly, whetstones for your swords, and a place to rest your feet. But first, you'll need money to get all of that. No matter what the roll, what do you do? Which is that's a very cool structure for, advancing time in D&D, I think.
And sort of rebooting an adventure in a way as well. You get a new starting point. Because it can be hard to do that sort of transition. One thing I've struggled with when I run the games is finding opportunities to give players money. My players are very poor. And not because they don't do anything. It's so I'm probably going to give them opportunities to, hey, you've had an income in this time that's passed, you have some money now. But one thing I want to do, so what my plan is, and I'm running it by my players to make sure they're all happy with it, is figure out first what everyone wants to do next. They'll probably go their separate ways. Maybe all of them, maybe some of them will sit together, we'll see. And then we'll do a series of stories focusing on each player or group that's split off, with the other players filling in as other characters that will become NPCs. And then after each of those stories, the group comes back together because the story moves on. They need to for whatever reason. I'm hoping that through that we'll be able to both explore different parts of the world where they're having to get them all there, and different aspects of each character. Like one character is a member of a religious order that's like mercenary monster hunters, and that's very much at odds with one of the other characters who is very compassionate, likes helping people, not change things, and doesn't want to fight. And because of that, it's been hard to really explore one or the other, as well as because of the place I've put them in and the culture surrounding that. So hopefully I'll be able to try a few different things in each of those before we move on. I don't know how it's going to go yet, is the thing, but it'll be an interesting challenge. I'm sure I'll learn and grow as a GM.
Right. Yeah, so that's going to do it for our show this week. Thanks so much for tuning in thus far. If you would like to support the show financially, you can do so by going to bit.ly/PauseCast, and that will take you to our Patreon. The Patreon has some pretty cool rewards, I'd say. They're pretty well on the low end, I'd say. You can find that at, again, bit.ly/PauseCast. Thank you to our current patrons. Ash Yee, Residoke, PD, Laminated Moth, Noah Holmes, and Anthea Whittle.
Thanks so
for their
much,
continuing
everyone.
support of the show. Let's see, what else do I need to remember here? Mark, you're online. Where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter at HonestUniverse, and I blog as well, though not about video games, at honestuniverse.com. And you're online as well, right?
Yeah, you can find me at CockatielCutie. You can find me at live.bird.school, where I'm doing streaming much more frequently. There's a post just below my channel, which should tell you about my schedule. Yeah, and I'm on Twitter. Bird.school is the best way to get there, I think. You can also... I want to get serious for a moment here about a couple of things. One, if you are in New Zealand, please consider a party vote for the Greens. Or just anybody but National. We need to kick National out, and we should make that happen. If you are not registered to vote, I don't think it's too late. I think you can still register.
No, I'm pretty sure you can register up to the day, but don't leave it up until the day.
Do not leave it up until the day, so help me God. Register to vote, especially if you're young. Register to vote. Make sure you are registered to vote. Get out there and vote. Kick National out of our fucking government.
We can do better, yeah.
We can absolutely do better. We can do better by electing literally anybody else. Just get...
Careful, don't...
Remove the Conservatives and put them over there. That's it. Also, I shouldn't speak like that because we could get Gareth Morgan, who knows. Second serious note. If you haven't already, maybe consider giving a donation to Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma relief. They're affecting huge swaths of... Irma is affecting the Caribbean right now, as well as it's looking to make landfall in Florida. And Harvey affected a solid chunk of Texas. If you're wanting to help out with relief in either, any of these areas that are affected by these huge storms, I would recommend looking into some local charities, like Houston Food Bank, if you wanted to help out Harvey victims specifically. But look into some local charities first. Try not to donate to the Red Cross. There's quite a bit of documentation and research showing they don't use their funds efficiently in the U.S. Red Cross. So a local charity will be your best bet. If you can afford reasonably to support people on the ground there, that I think would be a huge help. As a representative of Feminist War Cult as well, there is a very strong likelihood that we will be putting something together as a community to get a donation going. And we'll see where that goes in the coming days.
I can't remember, people can't see me nodding on here. I'm seconding all this, folks. I'm agreeing with this.
Alright, and as a last note, that's maybe not so serious. Thank you to Leon for the use of our theme song, Honey Milk Island. You can find Leon's music and download Honey Milk Island for free at soundcloud.com/LEYAWN. And that is PauseCast for the week. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Bye.